magic show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's gone, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with lies and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
I know the truth is hard to swallow, just digest it. Suspected something's going on, chosen just neglected, deflected by some breaking news. Are we just accepted, expected just to fall in line and follow their perspective? Don't question their objectives, but I got a lot of questions. How these kids molested, but nobody's been arrested. Read it in the Testament, these children are protected. So I'm fighting all these terrorists, both foreign and domestic.
Hey folks, welcome to Truth Talk with Steve. Today I have the great pleasure to bring back Tina Erwin. I'm so excited to talk to you, Tina. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm really excited to have you here.
I am thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I love your show.
Oh, thank you. It's I try to have a bunch of diverse different guests, but I'd have to say you are the guest that has, like, I guess what I would compare it to is, the old Swiss Army knife that has a little of everything, and you seem to have so much incredible knowledge on so many different topics that I'm certainly interested in. I know my audience really has a lot of interest in them too. So, it's just my pleasure to have you here, and I'm just grateful that we connected and look forward to many shows to come in the future. So again, thank you.
Oh, that's great. And and if people write into you and you have a show of just questions people ask.
Excellent.
That's really cool. And it also really builds a lot of interest. That a lot of times people have questions and nobody ever answers them. And some of them are specific, but some are general. So,
That's a great point.
These are questions I have had, and I spent years and years and years studying and reading everything I can get my hands on. So this isn't just, somebody, I downloaded it from on high. This is more very practical understanding. So I really am grateful for an opportunity to share this, on a down-to-earth level with people who have, curiosity about these things.
That's what, as I mentioned to you before we started, going today, that I went to lunch with a buddy and we talked about exactly that. And that's what has really intrigued me, because there's so much that we don't know. And that's why I do this, but also I just want to learn, because I want to know truth, and also the abilities that we have, because we did talk about some of the things that, you obviously have the skill set. And, I made the comment that, I said, I know, I believe, well, I really truly believe, I was going to say I know, and I guess I kind of believe I know that we all have these abilities. It's just, we have to, work at it, and we have to, it's just like anything. If you're going to learn how to do something or try to do something, you've really got to work at it. I also believe there are people that, whatever you want to call it, I don't like the word gift personally. But
well, I never use the word gift.
Yeah, they've just got something, at a different level. But that's kind of like anything. Certain people have, or more athletic, or whatever the example is. But anyway, and so as we were talking about that, many things came up, and so I'm really excited to, talk about various things today. But the one thing that we did kind of discuss, and it's a topic that, growing up in a religion, particularly the Mormon religion, where we're taught, that we are here on this earth this one time, and that based on how you, act and the things that you do will get you to either the telestial, terrestrial, telestial, or celestial kingdom, and that you'll live for eternity there, And so we got talking about the fact that we're talking, and please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, that it's a matter of our vibration, our frequency, and then different dimensions that allow us, to see them. I don't know exactly, but I think hopefully you understand kind of what I'm saying. But
I do.
your input.
And my argument when it comes to people who say, you only live once,
Yeah.
is if you died after 5 minutes of mortal life,
Bingo.
then what was the
What was the
point?
point? Yes.
Or, you live to 100 years old. You have all these amazing experiences. Well, good for you. I have a friend in downtown where I live, and she just turned 100
Wow.
last month. She works every day. Bless her heart. She's amazing. But
Boy, I
I
think that's
know
the key to
my
for living long, staying active.
absolutely. My 6-year-old niece died on my sister's sofa. She was 6 years old, and then other parents said, well, no, my 7-year-old died, and we were part of a cluster death of these children who died at a short age.
Wow.
And if you can't wrap your brain around a past life, then why would there be such a short changing of life experience when a baby or a child dies at such a young age, or a teenager, or someone in their 20s?
Right.
And if we just take a moment and explore a past life, it's like tasting foods you never tried before. You don't know until you try it whether it's going to work for you.
Yeah.
So I'm offering some ideas to people. You don't have to accept this, but at your heart, at the deepest core level,
Yeah.
the core that knows things, does it ring true for you? If what I'm saying feels unjust, that a child is born with cancer and dies 6 months later, it's not about being fair or not fair. You can't talk about past lives without understanding karmic ramifications.
Bingo.
And these two are so interconnected. And, that's why I wrote a book. It's Soul Evolution, Past Lives and Karmic Ties. And there was a great master who said, if you want to know about your past lives, look at who and where you are today. And that will help you have a view to your past lives. For instance, if you don't mind, I'll throw some examples out there.
Do it.
Just
Absolutely.
so basic. I had a neighbor who was a physician, and I feng shuied his office repeatedly. And I always had to chuckle. I couldn't tell him this because I don't tell people what their past lives were. That's a violation of spiritual law. But I can't help but observe it. His office was cowboy boots and pictures of Roy Rogers, and these enormous paintings of Native Americans on their horses, looking out over the desert. And I'm thinking, man, have you had a lot of past lives? And he was probably a country doctor. And by God, this life he was going to save those people he couldn't save in all those different times. And I mean, it was just, there was a poignancy to it. He was a down to earth general practitioner who just wanted to help people.
Yeah.
And there are all these YouTube videos. There's one of a kid that's 18 months old, barely walk, and he's playing Mozart.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had a 3-year-old grandson. He's not playing Mozart. And this 18-month-old didn't open some package that said, here's your gift. You can now play Mozart or Chopin or anything.
Yeah.
This child has an ability that has been honed life after life after life. When you look at America's Got Talent and you look at a 10-year-old who has the voice of an angel,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that they reincarnated and they were an angel. Doesn't mean that. It means that life after life after life, they've been honing those vocal cords. And if you are using the ability you have for the greatest good, over time, each life you come back, this is also part of spiritual law, you get to use that ability at higher and higher levels. You don't just go to first grade. You go to grade after grade after grade. And if you don't do really well, sometimes you have to repeat a grade. Well,
Yeah.
at least in the olden days you did, if you didn't get all
Yeah.
the learning you needed.
That's right.
And what this shows me is there's a kid they talked about who at the age of 7 has, I don't know how many PhDs, just the super
Jeez.
genius kid. Okay. Well, again, you know, he didn't open some gift on his birthday or a holiday and say, I am now going to be a genius. The guy came in this way. And I've seen children at the age of 10 years old whose artistic ability is so staggering. Their paintings are selling for millions and they might be 15
Wow.
now. And
Wow.
what I'm seeing is that yes, you have to come back as a mortal in a physical frame, but they seem to be who's the they I'm talking about. The higher realms seem to be allowing these children to express their ability at earlier and earlier ages. There's
Interesting.
a girl in Germany who, if she's not the reincarnation of Mozart, I don't know what. She's rewriting his operas. By the
Wow.
age of 10, she was rewriting operas and directing entire massive symphonies. And
That's
they forgot she was 10 because her knowledge is jaw dropping.
yeah.
So, where I'm going with this is when you have an ability that is so enormous in another life and you die, and that ability, it lives within you to the deepest level, then there is certain laws that spiritual laws that enable you to come back and use that ability now on a higher level because you didn't abuse the ability.
I see.
And that's a really important thing.
The
People
abusing
who
of an
abuse
ability.
ability, whether it's scientific or maybe someone is an amazing teacher and they just love sharing the knowledge, they get to come back again and again and again and share it on so many levels. And that is one of the most obvious pieces of evidence for past lives.
Yeah, because to me, as you talk
Now,
about this, it resonates, but it also just from a logical standpoint totally makes sense. Because nothing else makes sense of a 10-year-old being able to do that. You know what I mean? That's just not a
how could that
gift.
possibly be?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. From just logic, it totally makes sense, but it feels right, and it must be right because every hair on my body's standing up when I'm saying that.
Okay, so there's a part of you that knows what's true and what isn't true.
Yeah.
And when I go into a lot of different homes, if I see someone everywhere you look, they have pictures of France.
Okay.
One of my son's best friend in high school had a mom who was the French chair for one of the other local high schools, not where he went. And this woman was so fluent in French, and everything in her house had some French feel. And she would go back to France. People all thought she was, a native French woman. And I looked at her, and I could just see all these past lives because it was so comfortable. I mean, and my husband and I lived in Italy when we were in the Navy. We lived there for 3 years.
Uh-huh.
And everything was familiar to me. I was fluent in Spanish when we got there, and he was fluent in French. So we each picked up Italian pretty quickly because it's not that difficult a language.
Uh-huh.
Such a beautiful language. But everything in Italy was familiar. I knew I had lived there before. And
Yeah.
it was so comfortable. We were never lost. The understanding of how to embrace the culture and just enjoy that. The Italian culture is a culture of generosity, would be one of the easiest way for me to describe it.
Yeah.
And but there are people for whom the country of India, they're surrounded by, they may not have an Indian ancestry physically, but there was very possibly a past life where they just love everything about India, the saris, the food, they love curry, they love whatever represents India to them. And when you start looking at what is your passion, is there a country? Is there a culture? Is there a language? I have a friend who used to own property in Hawaii, and I could so clearly see that she had a Lemurian background. And she would say,
Wow.
I think I lived in Lemuria because I've lived in Hawaii so many lives. It's where it's where my soul is happiest.
Wow.
When you think about that, if you allow yourself to think, well, where is my soul the happiest?
Yeah.
it opens you up to new concepts.
I'll say.
And then people say, well, what about past life regressions? Doesn't the regression therapist tell you where your past life was? Well, I've done thousands of regressions with clients. And I have no idea where we're going to go, what we're going to do, what we're going to see.
How does that
I have
work
no idea.
exactly? And because when you say that, my only experience and the person that I think of that I've heard speak about many times is Dolores Cannon. When she does her
Right.
whatever her hypnotherapy
I've
is.
heard her. I don't use hypnotherapy. It's a
What
simple
is-
meditation.
Yeah, what is
Everybody does it a little differently, and I don't use hypnotherapy at all.
what is the definition of a regression?
A past life regression?
Could it be multiple past lives? Is it one past life? Is it all kind of mixed together?
We live thousands of lives for experiences. That for me, it's a very true statement. And when someone says, "Oh, I want you to do a regression," they don't understand what they're asking. I warned them. You have thousands of lives. Your subconscious will show you, and what I ask them to do, the pre-programming is, show us the life that is having the most influence on your life at this moment that you need to learn something about. That's the only thing I say. I have no idea what that person's past lives are.
Yeah.
I don't want to know. So I take them in a meditation, and it's a process, and I warn them. Sometimes you're going to see things that are deeply disturbing.
Yep.
One woman saw that her husband had killed her life after life.
Jeez.
And in this life, they came back together. And in this life, not only did he not kill her, they went through many processes for his personality to change, and he became a much better person.
Interesting.
In other past life regressions, some of them are chilling. The person takes their own life after life. And what I learned is that a person who takes their own life, they commit suicide. Many times they've done it life after life. It's an easy way out for them, but they're always sorry. And the trauma that the lesson is, when you're grieving for someone you love who has died, the lesson is you have to work through the grief, and you have to sever the attachment, and you have to be able to live without that person. But if you take your life after they take their life, then you're going to have to experience it again, and this person did. There are other reasons people take their own lives, from just staggering depression. And part of understanding that is, now it's time to move out of this depression and begin to heal that part of you that was never healed life after life. I've had regressions with people who were beheaded. The British, did a lot of that.
Yeah.
So did the French with the guillotine, and, the 1789 French Revolution, and on and on. I've seen guys who were cannon fodder life after life. They were somebody's army, and they died over and over and over and over. And this because you look at the Civil War reenactments. You might see a handful of women in, uncomfortable hot costumes, but man, those guys are out there with muskets.
Yeah.
And then rifles, and you're going, dude, you still died over and over. How many times? When do you get to heal that?
Jeez.
And so what I'm saying is, we are surrounded by evidence of past lives.
Yeah.
If you go to a museum, what do you make a beeline for? For me, it's always the Egyptian exhibit, or the paintings from Italy or France. So, I know where some of my interests lie.
Yeah.
If you look at, when you travel, what countries call to you the most?
Yeah.
Do you go back and visit a place that was really helpful to you? Or do you happen to be in a country that was horrific for you? And I've had several clients that they had horrible deaths in some countries. And they just, for me, I went to Spain once, and I was like, I am not ever going back. I had a really bad death there. The Inquisition killed an awful lot of people, and I've had clients who died at the hands of the Inquisition or were blinded at the hands of the Inquisition. I have friends who can't go to Italy because of the Inquisition.
Wow.
So where I'm going with this is that when you are aware of your past lives, it helps you to understand the current life. And there are people who died in World War II who came back in as little as 5 years. Now,
Wow.
this is where it gets to be amazing, because this story was on, I think it was something like 60 Minutes, many, many years ago. This guy died in a US submarine early in World War II. There were U-boats everywhere. The US torpedoes, they weren't Mark 48s at the time. There were other kinds of torpedoes. And the firing mechanism was so faulty. They would shoot a torpedo, give their position away, and then they ended up dead, because now you know where they are.
Right.
Well, this guy's submarine went down, and he started having nightmares over and over, and he could name everybody in his crew. Those old diesel boats had small crews. I mean, they also called them pig boats because they smelled of amine and diesel and men and cigarette smoke and that kind of thing. And he remembered his crew. I don't think they had more than like 50 guys. They were small boats. And he remembered what happened to them and his death, and he would have nightmares. And so he went to a psychotherapist. He said, I think I died in a submarine. And they did a regression, and he could name everybody.
Wow.
They went back to Navy records. They found his name. They found his face. They could verify every single thing this man said.
Wow.
But it gets even more fascinating, because they took him to where his original parents were. They were still alive. His family was still in a small town in the South.
Oh my gosh.
And they had made arrangements, and they said, we think he came back, and this is the guy. And when they saw him, I'll never forget, I saw this episode. The family burst into tears and hugged him and cried and cried. And he said, is my room still blah, blah, blah? And did you save these things? And they said, and they're crying, yes. And he said, and here's where my room is. And he opened up a drawer, and he said, this is where I hid this. And so for people who are told there's no such thing as a past life, in the moment they saw him, the emotion of love and grief so swept them that they didn't believe what they had been programmed to believe anymore.
Because away.
And his new family, he was a young man in his 20s. His current family and his past life family. Can you imagine wrapping your brain around that?
No kidding.
This is a true story.
That's incredible.
So when someone says, I don't believe in past lives, it's like, you're certainly free to believe whatever you want.
Yeah.
But the evidence is so compelling that you have to look at this a little differently sometimes when you're come face to face with it.
I'll say, because, like you were talking about earlier, it totally makes sense for that person that, dies at 6 months, 6 years, whatever. The same thing goes, we were taught growing up in our religion that, the person that is born Down syndrome or whatever just has an automatic pass to the celestial kingdom, things like that. It's like, and then you got to also ask yourself, well, why is a person born like that? Or one thing that always, I guess this is the example that really started me to believe this was true before I really dug into it or came across people like you that had the experiences, was, why is it that I'm born here in the family I'm born in the USA versus the person that's in Africa or some third world country? And you know what I mean? That just never made sense to me, that why that would happen, other than the things that I believe I've learned and think that,
right,
based on previous lives or experiences maybe that we choose to have. I mean, I've heard a lot of people talk about that. There's got to be something to those things versus just randomly that person has to go through the life the way they're going through it.
I used to hold, well, actually I still do, meetings in my home in San Diego called Light Times. And I had so many people want to talk about these things that I would have quite a group, once or twice a
Okay.
month. And one woman came who had never come before, and the topic was past lives. And I always say, does anyone have anything they want to share? And she said, yes, I am a white woman in a black body. I mean, you could have heard a pin drop in the room.
Wow.
And she said, I was a chief in Africa. I had a family. I had a wife, and we loved the land. I mean, in this person, in this soul's mind, this wasn't a third world country. This was their home. This was their land, and they looked out at the animals and the trees and the mountains and wherever it was that this person had lived before. And she said, I'm not comfortable in this body. I remember being black.
Wow.
I was so much happier being a black man. And now I'm in this body and it feels so weird to me. And she said, I don't understand. And this is why you have to be so careful when you say something, because this person really believed this because it lived within her.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any way she was making this up. This was very true for her. You have people who, somebody told me they were visiting Europe and they'd never even been in a Catholic church, but they were in a Catholic church in Europe and went in and did the whole, kneeling and, crossing themselves. And I remember she said to me, why did I do that? She said, why did I do that? What made me do that? And I said, well, I'm sorry, it sounds like a past life to me. You did what you used to do in that moment. Well, does that mean I used to live there? And I said, well, it's a possibility.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to sit here and say you had a past life at. Why would I deprive you of the discovery?
Yeah.
You'll see past life. One of the keys, some of the hints are you have a lot of throat problems or vocal cord problems.
Uh-huh.
A lot of those people were beheaded in a past life, or they were hung.
Wow.
And in this life, what you'll see is that you'll see those throat problems. There are some people who have problems with feet or legs. In a past life, they may have lost a leg. In this life, there are some physical and emotional challenges they must overcome there to keep their legs. And then in the next life, their legs are more whole. They've done better managing and caring for the body. And I would offer people a viewpoint, just a viewpoint, that Christ talked about life everlasting, not compost everlasting, life everlasting.
Yep.
And the opportunity for growth, isn't this the most generous element of the divine, is to have one opportunity after the other.
Are you tired of paying exorbitant monthly fees for your in-home entertainment? Do you wish there was a way to bring quality and affordable entertainment right into your household without a monthly subscription? Well, look no further. Introducing the 𝑍𝐻 Box Android TV Stream Box. Since 2020, 𝑍𝐻 Box has been enriching people's lives all over the world, and now it's coming to North America. Say goodbye to scattered subscriptions and countless apps. We've got all your streaming in one place. This is the best fully loaded Android TV box provider in North America. Our user-friendly interface makes navigation a breeze, and with the voice remote featuring Google Assistant, finding your entertainment has never been easier. The 𝑍𝐻 Box V2 Pro Android box is the epitome of convenience. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your favorite shows and movies with just a few simple voice commands. And the best part, no monthly subscriptions. That's right, you heard it correctly. Say goodbye to those pesky recurring fees and hello to endless entertainment. Join the 𝑍𝐻 Box revolution and elevate your entertainment experience. Don't miss out on this amazing opportunity. Visit our website and order your 𝑍𝐻 Box now. Bring home the 𝑍𝐻 Box today and bring endless joy and excitement to your household. 𝑍𝐻 Box, unleash the power of entertainment.
I'll give you another example of why I warn psychics or energy healers who say, "Oh, you had a past life in so and so." Well, there was one of these psychics who told this woman, "You had a past life, and this man killed you and he murdered you, and he's your father in this life."
Oh gosh.
Well, in this life, her father was the best dad you could ever want. He was
Wow.
a good and kind and worked his heart out to be the best dad. It destroyed her relationship with her father.
Gee, I'll bet.
That psychic earned horrific karma for that
I'll bet.
because this woman believed what the psychic said above everybody else. That's why the psychic earned magnified karma,
Yes.
because she created a karmic ripple. She harmed the dad, she harmed the daughter, she harmed the family,
Yep.
and all the
Gosh.
echo of those relationships.
Yep.
Somebody says, "Oh, I know what your past life was." Stop them. Say, "Don't tell me anything. It's not your job to do that."
Oh, no kidding.
I mean,
Jeez.
she gave the psychic more credence than
Yeah.
she gave
For experience with her own dad.
her father's track record was impeccable. Did he kill her in another life? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But in this life, he was given an opportunity to
So he had,
repair the
yes.
karma. If
Yeah.
that was true,
Correct.
then he should have been honored for being a better person and
Amen.
healing many things. I mean, you think
Wow.
about it, it's just fascinating when you study this.
Well, yeah, there's so many questions and so many different, areas that, wanted to go down. So it's like thousands of past lives. I mean, I assume as eternal souls, that's what it's all about. So what's the end game?
Oh, that's such a good question. There's a wonderful book called the 𝐎𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐵 book, URANTIA.
Okay.
This book is 2,095 pages in their tissue paper, let me tell you. And this book is written by off-worlders.
Wow. That's a great
topic. That's a whole nother topic, the 𝐎𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐵 book. And that's the term they have for this world. And this book talks about many things. The Adam and Eve story is just one of the things. They talk about the Lucifer rebellion. They give you some pretty staggering insights. But one of the things they talked about is that you live thousands of lives for experience. And each life you make a little more spiritual progress and a little more spiritual progress. And hopefully you reach a point where you have gotten to a level of spiritual progress where you do not get to reincarnate anymore. And you join what's called the core, CORP, the core of the final lighters. And that doesn't mean that you sit on a cloud and pluck a harp. It means that now you're at a new level and you have more advanced things that you're doing on a spiritual level. The 𝐎𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐵 book is extremely practical. It's the description of how God runs all the universes. There's 7 super universes. So when you have this massively big picture, which is why it takes a while to read this book.
Oh yeah. Is it fairly normal type easy reading, or is it?
No, it's not.
I was gonna say, I'm sure it can't be based on.
It's not easy reading.
Yeah.
However, the last 1/3 of the book covers the life of Christ from every single moment.
No way.
Every moment of his life is covered. And
Wow.
that when you read the sections about Christ, something inside of you is filled with a spiritual nourishment, would be the easiest way I could describe it, because there's no religion in the afterlife. And this book is not a religious book. It's a book that offers you an enormous understanding of how things have worked, what happens, how does this work, who was Christ, why did he come? He was in a mortal body. He got angry sometimes because a mortal body feels emotion. that flush of rage that comes up when something occurs. He was head of family because his father died when he was 13. And Joseph of Arimathea was his uncle, and how they helped each other when Joseph died of an illness, I think an illness or an accident. And Jesus had to become head of household with like 9 siblings. I mean, you look at the practical elements of his life. People said, he was born in a manger, he died on the cross. It's like, well, time out here. This man lived 29 years. What happened in that time?
Was it 29?
The 29 years. The gift of the Magi. Well, who were they? What is Magi? Magi's magicians, 3 magicians. What did they give him? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Well, what are those things, and why did they give them to him? So I got into so much trouble as a kid asking these really uncomfortable questions. I wanted to know, who was this man?
See, that's where I'm at.
Him off I want to take him off this tortured cross, which apparently is a black magic symbol.
Yeah.
You see Christ on the cross. I mean, I'm sorry, if you love Christ.
That's never resonated with me ever.
That is, you want to take a beloved master off the cross.
Right.
And give him love and healing.
Yeah.
And I know there are a lot of people who have a lot of very strong views about their faith, and you are welcome to those views. I'm just the person asking some questions. And the last third of the Urantia book, the discussions of Christ, are the easiest part of the book to read. This book talks about all of his disciples. They were ordinary human beings. Yes. They were all married. This celibacy stuff. The rest of the mortals in his life were all married. And when Jesus took them to teach, they made sure their crops were in, that the families had money, that their children were cared for, but they didn't do that 365 days a year. You get a very practical view of the life of Christ. I didn't mean to digress on past lives.
I'm glad you did, because this is where I'm at with what I really want to learn, because based on how I grew up, I obviously have these beliefs. Now I've for the most part let go of them, but there's so many questions, obviously, but there's so many things that you talk about that that totally resonate with me, but yet I have still so many questions, like, because as I've awakened to a lot of things, and, my beliefs on the dark side and the things that they do, then it really messes with me, because I say, well, you hear the Bible's missing 777 books or whatever the number is. And, so out of all these different things, what is true? And then you have other books I've read, one called Word Magic, which there's some great stuff in it, but there's some stuff that makes sense that really goes against Christ and who he is, like the Son being the true Son, and it's just, and so it really messes with you, and that's why I do this. It's more for me than those listening. I'm being honest. I mean, I hope people get something out of it, obviously, but I'm just trying to get to the bottom of things, not only about Christ and his life and truly who he is, but everything, and obviously a lot of things it's going to take time and maybe lives and lives to learn, but that's where I'm at and what matters to me,
Well, this is why I am always encouraging people to cross over someone who's died. Because when they cross over, they sit down with counselors of divine wisdom, and they get to ask all these questions. I have a lot of questions that I've got a list going, and but they can help you understand the life just lived. And I think one of the biggest problems with the violence on the planet is that people are reincarnating from the fourth dimension, and they're not having the benefit of the divine. And it's kind of an interesting point. And when you are crossed over, you don't come back for up to 152 years, from like 152 to 1,000 Earth timed years.
Is that a choice of the soul, or how does that work?
That is a combination, and it's way beyond my pay grade.
Based on
and all sorts
of different things.
we'll call it an algorithm for
That's
for the
perfect.
mathematicians among us.
Yep.
It's an algorithm, and it's based on
Interesting.
the previous lives, the life just lived, the difficulties you had in childhood in this life, which are forming a lot of different elements of your personality,
Oh
your
boy.
belief structure. What do you need spiritually and emotionally to grow? That's going to determine the next life you have. What do you personally want to do? Do you have a soul purpose, or do you have a soul mission, or do you have both? For some people, it's just to survive childhood. That's their
Oh
purpose.
yeah.
Some people have a mission, which is to help on a much broader scale. And they become aware of it at some point in their life, that this is their mission, and they'll do this till they die.
Yeah.
And I hear a lot of people who've had horrendous childhoods and they're so hurt. I want this to be my last life. I'm just not coming back.
Right.
Not your choice.
Yeah. So is it
But
the algorithm that also figures that out then, right?
it's the
Because
algorithm
I've heard
that,
plenty of people talk about, you meet with God, what is it? The word just slipped me, whatever. Anyway, it'll come to me, and kind of choose. But I don't, that didn't really ever make sense to me.
no, it's who you were, who you will be, who you are, and who you will become based on the experiences. And you're making a choice every day.
Yeah.
Do I say this or that?
Yeah.
Do I answer this way or that way? Do I step back? How do I handle this, or how do I handle that? And there's no learning in perfection. If we were perfect, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
But there are people who reach certain levels and they have a knowing they're not going to come back again.
Wow.
And those people grieve, because by the time you get to that
Wow.
level, there is a profound sadness, because that person
Interesting.
thinks there's so much more they would love to do, and have a love of humanity. And I want to really bring this out. When you read the section about Christ in the Urantia book, the thing that knocks you down, that just sweeps you, is how much Christ loved humanity.
Wow.
What that love was like. There's one section that I had it highlighted. I mean, the whole book is just full of yellow because I've read it a couple times. And he talks about the power of friendship. A good friend can lighten a heavy day. A good friend just lets you talk. A good friend is there for you in your darkest, heaviest moments.
Yep.
I mean, it's just one little sentence. Is they have a problem with run-on sentences in this book. But you look at the love Christ had for humanity and the compassion that is offered to every soul. If you didn't quite get it right in that lifetime, you can come back and be the best you can be in the next one. If that is not the compassion of God, of Christ, I don't know what is.
No
and if it's your
kidding.
last life, your sadness at not being able to continue, embrace, and help humanity would be profound. You
I'll
wouldn't be
say.
trying to make your exit because you're done with the planet. That means you haven't learned enough.
Yeah. What's your opinion on, so let's say, you're that person that that's your last live. You're obviously, like you say, you have that tremendous grief and sadness because others aren't there. When they do pass, would you'd still be able to engage with those people until they came back and had a next live, or what's your opinion on that?
Well, I have to be careful there because I don't have actual knowledge of that.
That's
When
what
you're in the heaven world, I'm being very careful here. When you're in the heaven world, there are so many avenues and pathways based on what your skill set is. There are people whose voices and music ability are so important for the planet, because they're bringing a frequency to the planet There are people whose
Yeah.
math ability, if you look at every ability that we need,
Yeah.
then those people are still learning in the higher realms as well. They may go to another planet to help. They may have other jobs to do in other worlds or in other realms that you wouldn't get to reincarnate with a loved one. It would be really hard
Yeah. Is that
to not be able to come back
algorithm
with that person.
I know we use this just for an understanding, but it makes sense. So is that algorithm also something that would determine if you went to a different planet on the next life? Same thing as
Yes, yes.
okay.
And I'm using that term, but there are these remarkable beings called Lords of Karma. There are counselors of divine wisdom. There's bright and evening star. I mean, the beings that you get to learn about are so jaw-dropping that you have a sense of the expansiveness and the dynamic of God and all of the beings who are trying to make the universe a remarkable place.
Yeah.
And the compassion to offer someone who has taken their life repeatedly, they're not punished, they're not beaten up or something horrible. They're given another compassionate opportunity.
Yeah.
And when someone says, well, they took their own life, so man, are they going to get, they're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
The compassion for someone who takes their life and that you can cross over using crossing over prayer or just the goodness of your heart that you ask that they be sent to the higher realms with compassion and healing and learning is just, it warms something to the depth of your being to know how much love there is for each of us, no matter who we are or what we've done, which is why I cross over murderers, so that whatever parts of them is missing can be restored. And maybe they have an opportunity to not do that again.
Interesting.
Is this making sense?
Absolutely. 100%. Totally. I mean, it totally resonates with me. It brings up a whole bunch of questions, but that's what I think, that's what I want. That's what I think people, they're awakening are looking for. And, in your response to being careful because you don't really have experience, that's exactly what I expect you to say, because I know who you are. And that's what Truth Talk is about. We're going to speak truth. If we don't know it, we can give an opinion. We're going to make it clear that that's all
That's
it is.
right. It's an opinion.
Exactly.
Because if I were at that level, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right?
Yes. Yeah. What's your opinion? You'll clarify if it's something different, of like ascended masters versus Christ in his life. Because I've heard some people talk like basically they're basically the same. Christ is an ascended master. It's not so much that I'm concerned about that with my beliefs on Christ and his role and everything versus what is the definition of ascended master? Is it somebody that has, reached higher levels and possibly to the type that don't have to come back again?
I think, and again, this is just my opinion.
Okay.
There are many, many masters who have walked the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been in all cultures. I mean,
Yeah.
the Asian culture has some astonishing people who have been masters, and because they have to be spread all over the planet. They're not just in one. There's not a chosen group. All of us are loved, period.
Yep.
You have there was a Greek master by the name of Daskalos who was astonishing. There was a master by the name of Dr. George King in the Aetherius Society. There have been masters in England. And they're not well known. They come here with a very specific mission, and they do their mission, and they manipulate karma to a certain degree, and then they leave. And one of the things that I would like to offer as a concept, very careful with my words, what if Christ didn't die on the cross for sins you hadn't committed yet, or he
Right.
couldn't have imagined you would commit?
Yeah.
What if his death was to manipulate karma for something that we have no idea that it was?
Yep.
What if it had nothing to do with whether or not we were sinners? And what if Christ on that tortured cross was a black magician's symbol to perpetuate the torture of a master?
Yep.
And that this constant, you are a sinner, you are a sinner, you are a sinner, he died for your sins,
Shame,
is
shame, shame,
another
shame,
black
shame.
magic tool to create guilt, which seeks punishment, which creates illness, and
Fear, anxiety, everything,
it
shame.
causes anxiety, and it means that you don't feel worthy to cross into heaven, to go
Yep.
back to God.
That's
It's effective, let me tell you, because
it's
I cross
masterful.
over so many truly good people who said, "Oh, God can't love me. You know, I
Oh
was
yeah.
born in sin, I died in sin."
Oh,
And I, you know what? You know, let's just give it a try. Do you see this light? And as soon as they feel this light, everything changes for them.
she's
And
no
then
kidding.
it's like you let them go, and they are embraced with so much love. They didn't think. I've crossed over
Yeah, they
ministers
didn't feel like they were
who
worth
had
it. Yeah.
no idea. Atheists, I mean, I don't care. They're not mine to judge.
Yeah.
But why would you deprive a single soul on earth of that light?
No kidding.
It's so beautiful. It's so welcoming. And back to ascended masters, they come with very specific, narrow missions to do. And they come back continually until they're not allowed to come back anymore
Okay.
for whatever, again, that algorithm is. And how that's determined is so beyond my pay grade. But there is a determination. And as each person is trying to do the right thing for other people,
Yeah.
and they're trying to be of service in some way, like you're trying to get, you know, other concepts out there for people. You're not saying you have to believe this. You're
Yeah.
saying, what if this is an interesting
Consider.
concept?
Yeah.
What about this? What about that? Let's think about this.
Yep.
Then that's been of service to people. And I believe that every time we are of service to others, it raises the frequency of the planet a little bit and a little bit and a little bit.
I'll say.
And it's super cool.
No kidding. Yeah, when you talked about the cross and what if it was like this, that's what I believe. It was something different because, as I said, knowing or the beliefs that I don't have a specific knowing of very many things, but I have some very strong opinions based on a lot of information, and the feel I have of how these black musicians work and how evil they are.
Oh,
That,
yeah.
and that's why I get so confused, I guess, at times with what I believe in the Bible versus what I don't, because I know it's been manipulated and,
Oh,
you know,
yeah. Rewritten
so
and
it's,
rewritten.
yeah, so it's, and we know there's mistakes. You can just compare that phone game,
Yeah.
you pass around a message and how it changes. That's just normal. And then you learn, I was taught in the Bible we read is the King James Version. Well, when you go learn about who he was and what he did and the things he is all about, that, it's like, why would I want to read his stuff?
Well, we know the
Like,
Council of Nicaea, I think it was 1428, removed reincarnation from the Bible
yes, yeah,
because the Empress Isadora didn't want someone knowing she'd been a prostitute.
yeah,
So the karma of those two to remove reincarnation from the Bible, and when you point this out to people, it was always there. These
yeah,
two individuals took it out. And now, things were going along like this, and now they're like this. And is another interesting thing. We were in Italy in Siena, and no, it's a place called Potenza. It's in the
okay,
middle of Italy, in the middle of nowhere. And it
uh-huh,
looks like a Grand Canyon. And many of the Christians hid from the Romans in these caves in this Grand Canyon with these huge canyon walls. And they would lower themselves down into these caves. Well, inside these caves are the original paintings of the Christians who were hiding from the Romans, who knew Christ. So
Wow.
you're in the presence of the painting of someone who had been in the presence of Christ. I found that to be deeply moving. And his hands are outstretched to all of us. He's not on a cross. His
Yeah.
hands are outstretched and reaching for each of us in love, not in guilt and torture.
Makes no sense. Yeah.
It absolutely makes no sense.
And that's what is so, so clear to me with the Mormon religion. Once again, I always bring that up because that's 45 years of my life. And it is all based on shame and guilt. It's all based on perfection. And,
Well, if you were,
bad,
there's no learning in perfection. I've met many a person from a variety of faiths,
yeah,
who said, I just can't work with this anymore. And it's like, you're not a heathen because you don't go into a building of, wood and stone. And there are something like 500 miles of places in the Vatican with all the lost gospels that they don't want anyone to know.
Yeah.
And a very interesting movie is the movie Stigmata.
Stigmata.
Stigmata. It had Patricia Arquette and Gabriel Byrne and some other really amazing actors. And it's, I didn't want to see the film. And this came out in the 90s. And my brother said, I think you have to see the film. I said, oh my God, it looks like a horror movie. And he said, no, you really need to see this. And what happens is, in this film, Patricia Arquette is a hairdresser, and she receives a gift from her mother from a priest in Peru. And I'm not going to give away the story, but if I think it's worth watching this film, because one of the things it emphasizes are the lost gospels, and this part of this film is true. And it talks about stigmatics, including Padre Pio, who I think he lost a pint of blood a day as a stigmatic.
Really?
And this film talks about these gospels, and it says, Christ said, I do not live in buildings of wood and stone.
Yep.
Lift a rock or feel a piece of wood. I am there. I am all around you. I am everywhere.
Bingo.
I am not confined to buildings of wood and stone.
Right.
And that is the message of the film, and the transformation of Patricia Arquette in this film is as fascinating. And I remember there are certain scenes in the film, and I burst into tears because in some of the scenes, she's experiencing what Christ experienced when they put the stakes in his wrists. This film got it right. They couldn't, your hand won't hold up a body. They put them through the bones, the bones in the wrist. I just started sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. I thought, oh my God, maybe I was there. It's just, this feeling was just so overwhelming. And I'm probably not alone. So again, this is, you did ask a question about the masters. And there are some who say Christ has come back many times in many forms that you wouldn't necessarily recognize. But because people are so judgmental today on what is or isn't Christian, and what particular avenue of faith someone does or doesn't believe, if he presented today, I don't know that many people would believe him.
Oh, I'll bet. Yeah.
And so
I wouldn't be surprised
whether you believe him or not, recognizing that at the end of the day, I don't channel ascended masters. I don't channel anybody. I have a team that helps me on the other side, and I have very strict guidelines that I have to follow.
Right.
And so I'm extremely careful, and I perform due diligence whenever I have to work on the other side. And I would encourage anybody else to do that as well. So just be really mindful that sometimes what you think is the truth really isn't.
Yep.
And there are many things in the Bible that did in fact happen.
I definitely believe that. Yeah. That's the thing. It's like the balancing of,
but some things were used to perpetuate a feeling of guilt and shame.
And to control, I believe.
Absolutely, to 100%. Control.
Yep.
Christ was not about controlling you.
Absolutely not.
Christ's message was love.
Exactly. Who was he hanging out
Period.
with? He wasn't hanging out with the quote perfect people, or who tried to act it. He was hanging out, the
Well,
drug addicts like me.
Christ wanted to understand why can't you heal on Sunday? And why, if someone has the ability to heal another person, does that make them the tool of the devil? I have never understood that. I have clients who have psychic kids who have the ability to heal.
Wow.
And their pastors say, oh my God, they're filled with the devil. They're evil. I'm sorry. You're relieving suffering. How is this evil?
No kidding.
And so I would just offer people, think about it a little more 3 or 4 dimensionally. And if you want to read something that opens you up to the tender mercies of Christ, the Urantia book, the last third of the book, will raise your personal frequency. Owning the book, reading the book will raise your frequency, and especially reading the section on Christ will change you in a positive way.
I'm definitely ordering it today, so I'm actually very excited, because that sounds like that's going to give me a lot of insights to things that I'm very curious about, and want more knowledge. And as you mentioned, I think no matter what our beliefs are, I think we're at a time right now that's trying to tell us it's time to question and ask questions, instead of just blindly going along with what your life experience is, because that's the life, whether it's the family I was born into and that's the life that they had growing up, so it just passes down. I'm not okay with just accepting it because that's what I was told and taught. I want to know for myself. And so it's a tough journey. It's a tough road, especially when everybody, in your family, for the most part, all your neighbors are still locked in on that, but I don't care.
You're not alone. There's a growing, there are growing numbers. It's growing like crazy. And, the opportunity to share some concepts, some ideas, some what ifs, it's just a gentle offering to people to look at something a little differently. And frankly, with so much more love and hope. I mean, every person on earth who's a parent loves their, hopefully, loves their children. I look at my children and I have grandchildren, my husband of 50 years. And I count my blessings every day for that. So anyway, it's been a great, some really super questions.
Great stuff. Well, let me think of this last one. I've got a bunch written down here, and then we'll wrap things up. This is just one I've been thinking about. I didn't write it down. Not even sure how to frame it, but as far as, you hear the word old soul, or, how does this, well, and I don't expect that you'll know the truth answer to this, but just your insider opinion is all I'm looking for. And if you know the truth, awesome. But, when how is somebody so much older, the soul that's had so many more lives, versus the person maybe that hasn't, or you know what I mean? Where does it all start as souls? I mean,
that part is a very difficult part, but that's a difficult question
but just
to answer.
I mean, I don't think very few would even know, but like your insight based on
I would offer you that everyone is an old soul. I hear that all the time. Someone says an old soul. Maybe. We're all old souls. The question is, how has that soul embraced their karmic path, their karmic experiences, looking at the lessons that are presented to them? You hear people say, if I had it to do over, I would. That's what reincarnation is. You have a do-over.
Yes.
That is, you do get to do it over. You don't just live once. Whoa, what a concept. And if you embrace that concept, then that means that if you're doing the best you can for your friends, your family, your neighbors, yourself, if you're caring for the body in this life, remember you have karma associated with a mortal body.
Yeah.
Think about that. There are some people who just abuse the body.
Oh yeah, I did for many
And
years.
and now when they're taking care of the body and they're honoring the frame, yeah, it's going to become compost.
Yeah.
But the care with which you manage the body you're in will make a big difference in the next life. And I met a woman who was 52 years old, and I couldn't believe it because she looked 25.
Uh-huh.
And I never forgot this woman because she had no depth of insight. She had no critical thinking. Everything was surface. And I
Okay.
couldn't help but wonder, someone would say, oh, well, she's a new soul. I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know if someone's a new or an old soul. The criteria for how souls are created is way beyond my pay grade.
Yeah.
Some souls come here from other planets. They're not all from this planet. They're from other places. How that works is determined by beings at a much, much higher level. But if you're not embracing the experiences of each life, if you're not looking at the opportunities presented to you and taking a step back in each moment, then you're not learning all that you could learn. And don't just accept what I'm saying.
Right.
Do your own research, do your own due diligence. Don't just let a psychic do a reading for you.
Yeah.
People say, can you do a reading for me? And I go, no, I can't. I will work with you to help you understand what's happening in your life.
Yeah.
But this is not about my ego that I think I see happening in your life is this. I can tell someone, you love your children or you're a really good person. That's about as far as I'm going to go. I'm not going to tell their future or tell their past. I'm going to say, what are you working on right now? What are you seeking to heal? Let's see how we can understand and give depth of insight. But I would advise people to probably not go to psychics. Don't let somebody flip your cards.
Yeah.
Take responsibility for your spiritual path and start studying. Not just my books, but your Rancha book. David Hawkins's Power versus Force.
Yeah, that's a good book.
The Mozart effect on frequency. And there's so many wonderful authors right now. Embrace prayer. It doesn't matter whether you're in church, but find a prayer that works for you. I mean, I've got the Crossing Over prayer book with 88 different prayers.
Yep.
But Christ was asked by his siblings, this is a fun thing, for a really good prayer. And his answer was, I thought this was so genius, the best prayer is the one that comes from inside your heart.
Yep.
And they said, yeah, but if you make it up, it's going to be so much better. And that's who created the Lord's Prayer, was Christ.
Oh,
and
wow.
his siblings said, see, you created the perfect prayer. And he said, yes, but there are prayers that are really amazing that you can create because with the love in your heart, you're asking for God's assistance.
Yeah.
And that is also a perfect prayer. It's giving people permission and authority to connect directly with God. That was the whole point of Martin Luther. It's the priesthood of all believers. I love that term. The priesthood of all believers. You do not need an intermediary to
That's it
talk
right
to
there.
God.
Yep.
You just need what's in your heart.
Yep. In fact, I was addicted to opiates for 14 years. When I was early on, I went to AA all the time, and I had this older gentleman who at one point was my sponsor, and prayer was always something I struggled with because of the way I was taught. It didn't make sense. It didn't feel right to me. And so just never was comfortable. So I honestly didn't do it that often. And, so I was having that conversation with him one day, and he said, Steve, you need to just speak to God the exact same way you speak to me or to your friend or to your earthly father. And if you need to drop the F-bomb or whatever it is that you're talking about, then be yourself and drop the F-bomb, just be authentic and speak from your heart, like you said. And then everything shifted. It was totally, it felt right. It felt normal and became easier.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you're trying to force something else a certain way. It's not authentic.
And that really was the point Christ was trying to make. Your authentic self is already loved.
Yeah. Yep.
Who you are is already embraced.
Yep.
You don't need buildings of wood and stone or intermediaries. And when you cross over into that light, that energy of love is amazing. And just because you're in a mortal body doesn't mean you can't ask for that energy of that light to be with you every day.
Yeah.
You have the right to ask for that. You have the right to ask for help.
Yeah.
In the most amazing way. You can ask for help for someone who's suffering. You can send them angels. And if someone says, can you send me blah, blah, fine. Someone says, I don't want you to send me prayer or healing or anything. You must respect their wishes.
Yeah.
And don't just ask spirit. I'm sorry. That's just spirit has never said no to a psychic. Think about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that says it all.
Yeah, that says it all. But free human beings have free will. And I don't care who you are, especially psychics. You have a moral and spiritual requirement under spiritual law to respect the free will of another soul.
Yeah. That's it. Well, man, this has been just fantastic discussion, Tina. I am so grateful. Where can, remind folks where they can find you, where they can find your books, and I'll make sure that all that's in the show notes, of course, so people don't have to write it down if they're unable right now.
Thank you again so much for having me and letting me share some concepts with people. ghosthelpers.com, and there's a way you can contact at Ghost Helpers with an S. All my books are on Amazon. Tina Erwin with an E, Tina Erwin, ERWIN. And, my sincerest hope is that people who may feel alone and unloved, remember that they are ever and always loved beyond measure, even in their darkest moments. And I know people who are separated from everyone, who are so alone in their perception, but if you can build this relationship with God, and reading the 𝐻𝐿𝐴 book, especially the last third of it, might take you to a whole other level and help lift you out of some of the perhaps doldrums you are in. The goal is always the service of others. So again, Steve, I can't thank you enough for opening all of us up to really important questions that you're not the only one who has those questions. If you're thinking them, other people are too. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm just grateful that, I've got what I consider now to be building a friendship with, a person that, that we can ask these questions, that's going to give us our honest insight, and some things you may know, some things you don't, and you're going to tell us. And so that's the key. So I appreciate you, and thank you so much for being here. And
You're very welcome.
Look forward to our next time.
All righty.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm here to tell you about my new product from MyPillow, towels that actually work. Watch this absorbency test. Here's another towel that we randomly went out and bought. Here's one of my towels with the nice design. I don't know if you can see this, but you could line a swimming pool with this. This is crazy. Get rid of it. Towels that actually work.
The new MyPillow towels are exclusively made with 100% USA combed cotton with proprietary technology and with maximum absorbency. They dry you faster and are guaranteed to work.
I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow. And to thank you for all your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. Go to MyPillow.com to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you get my dog beds for as low as $19.99, or for a limited time, you can get my 6-piece towel sets, regularly $109.99, now only $39.99. The lowest price ever with your promo code.